welcome to Fresh Face Comics, the comic book podcast where a lifelong comic book reader guides his friends through the world of comics for the first time. My name is Joey Morgan, the aforementioned lifelong reader. With me, as always, is Jacob Licklider, the aforementioned newbie.
This is the perfect thing to cover on Boxing Day.
You know what? You're absolutely right. Today we are talking about Batman Arkham Asylum from Rocksteady. I'm so excited to do this. I remember early on when we started doing the bonus episodes for Fresh Face Comics, I was like, we got to do the Arkham games someday. We have to.
Yes, and we're going. Finally here. I'd like to be able to do all four. Some of that's going to be out of our control on when we can actually do them all, because listeners, be warned. I'm running this on a laptop that is.
How many years old is it, Jacob?
It's a good 5 or 6.
Yeah. I'm surprised you made it through this.
Yeah. It ran.
But I'm glad that you did. So we're talking about Arkham Asylum today. I remember, so you had told me at one point that you had actually played Arkham Asylum many years back.
I had played and beaten it many years back.
When it first came out, probably?
I think a little after.
Okay.
I don't remember when, because we didn't have a PlayStation 3 until like a couple years into the console's lifetime, just because any sort of console you buy, except like the Nintendo ones, immediately on release, are quite expensive.
Indeed,
to drop all that money at once.
They don't stop being expensive for a long time.
So
But yeah, okay. So you were familiar with this game already.
Yes.
But how much of it did you remember on this replay?
Very specific elements. The final fight, oddly enough, I remembered that.
And how easy it is.
Yeah, it was weirdly easy.
Final fight of the game, and it is fucking laughable.
And then I will say, because this game was released what, in 2011? Was
2009.
2009. I think I might have gotten it in like 2011, 2012.
Because 2011 was when Arkham City came out.
Yeah, because I got it and City at the same time.
Okay. So did you ever play City, though?
I played parts of City. City's the one I remember less about.
Okay.
Outside of like the opening of City and being annoyed, I think, at like certain aspects of the overworld. Yeah, on how they would butt in.
What the side quests?
How like the Riddler missions would butt in, I think.
Okay.
Things.
Yeah, I gotcha. Interesting. So how much of this was like a new experience for you, though?
Interestingly, a lot of it felt new now that I actually, wasn't a dumb kid just smashing buttons to win.
Fair enough.
And I was actually paying attention to like the nice to not all the collectibles, but most of the collectibles.
The collectibles are great, like especially in this game where they make every collectible part of like the Riddler mission. Like you're making progress in the Riddler stuff at the same time as you're like getting all these interview tapes and collecting all of the Chronicles of Arkham and things like that. Like it rewards you for it. And
they're all great. Now, to be fair, I did not 100% complete this game for this
That's
episode.
Fine. I'll be spoiling aspects of the game for you since you didn't.
because one, I'm running this on a laptop, and she was struggling at points. There were points where she was struggling,
and it is worth mentioning that you had been replaying this for a while in prep for this bonus episode, but we're going through it pretty slowly. But we thought this was a great opportunity for our last episode of the year because this game, in its voice cast, does feature some voices from the animated series, namely the one and only Kevin Conroy. Who I wanted to do something to pay tribute to him as we had not really talked about him, specifically since I guess our BTAS.
That was just way back in February, which when the news of that hit, that was a sad day.
Oh my god, yeah. I remember. I just like after I read that, I was just rewatching a bunch of animated series that whole day, and totally just stopped me. But on the voice cast and. Before we get into this, important to note: how are we doing spoilers here?
I think we should fairly light on spoilers to start, but then maybe find a point where we can actually do like actual plot spoilers and things, because they're I don't think characters who appear are really spoilers.
Hmm.
Like a lot of and like they're, you can discuss the gameplay and that not really be a spoiler.
Yeah.
Um, but the plot stuff, some of the twists and turns near the end.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so I do want to talk about the voice cast. So we have Kevin Conroy as Batman, Mark Hamill as Joker, and Arlene Sorkin as Harley Quinn, reprising their roles from the animated series, and they're all just perfect. Like it's also Arlene Sorkin's last Harley Quinn performance, before she retired, I guess, and like it's just it feels unique because all the others, Conroy, Hamill, they have developed their performances over time. They've changed a lot since the animated series. And Arlene Sorkin, this is the one time that she really stepped outside of the animated series and got to play Harley just a little bit different, I'd say.
A little different, a little. I mean, a little more proactive as Harley's the secondary antagonist of the game.
Hmm.
Like, it's Harley and the Joker are, the obvious choice. This was also my introduction, I think, to Harley Quinn.
When you first played this
Like,
game?
yeah, it's just as a
Interesting.
character,
Hmm.
which, like, I had heard of her, but like, I don't think I had specifically watched really any BTAS at this point.
Okay.
Um, and like, I don't think she appeared in any of like the animated stuff that was showing on like Saturday morning cartoons.
Okay.
At least that I saw.
Yeah.
Uh, Honestly, it's an interesting introduction because Harley as a character here is kind of specifically characterized almost as an earlier Harley, and
Mhm.
just when the time this game came out, we really hadn't had that Harley Quinn on her own renaissance yet.
Yeah, yeah. This actually brings me to our first Twitter question that I wanted to bring up. Our friend Kaylee at Amity writes, says, "How do you feel Conroy and Hamill's performances differ from when they were doing voicing the characters in the animated series?" I want your opinion on that because I definitely have some takes on that, but I want to know what you think.
So Conroy, what's interesting is we don't really get a lot of his Bruce Wayne.
Mhm.
Like, it's all Batman, right?
We do get his Thomas at one point.
Yes, we do. We do.
Mhm.
And that's great. Um, and Conroy feels, I don't want to necessarily say a little directionless, but a little, at least in this game, just a little of unsure of sort of where Batman's status is. And that's kind of because the game is very Batman solo focused and not like larger Bat family. Like, I know that the other
Yeah,
Arkham
so he
games.
doesn't have like the chance to like interact with a lot of other characters.
Yes.
And namely, he's working off of Oracle in this.
Yeah.
Oracle is played by Kimberly Brooks in
Gross.
this, and she does a fantastic job. I love her in this, and I love
Also,
that.
yeah,
I love
also
that
my
Rocksteady like,
introduction to the character of Oracle, I believe.
and that's
Uh,
great though. Before I get into that point, I do want to mention that I like that this game like chooses to use Oracle as the woman inside rather than Alfred. I just think that works. But like one of the things I love about this game is how in depth it can be. There's this whole like sort of like back computer section you could open up in your menu, and it has all these character bios. So as you like meet new characters and unlock some of the riddles that you solve, you get new character bios. So like I remember I was showing this game to my sister. I was playing it with her, and we first talked to Oracle, and we got the character bio, and I read it out to her, and she was like fascinated by that character. And I think honestly, I'm pretty sure Barbara Gordon's like her favorite character now, like ever. And she just like loves her. And that's like where it all started for her. Like that's where she first learned about the character,
yeah.
and it's great, and I love that aspect of the game.
I mean, it's clearly crafted with love.
Mhm.
And what's especially interesting is Conroy's performance is all essentially all business, even when he's talking with Oracle.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, it's also interesting because um, just by the fact of what this game is and the Arkham series is to make a good video game,
Hmm.
this is kind of an example of a more violent Batman, because
Oh,
you
oh,
have
totally.
you have to
Absolutely.
yeah, you have to do it um just to make the gameplay work.
Yeah,
um
yeah.
and I like it, but it's Rocksteady goes hard on the violence.
Oh, they do,
Like,
and like it gets even more like hardcore in future games. Like in Arkham City, they introduce the beat down technique, which is basically you like stun an enemy and like you just keep pressing your punch button, and it's just like this really fast punch in succession. And then like in Arkham Knight, they introduce the fear multi takedown, where you like spring up on them and you can take out like multiple enemies in like a row in like the most brutal ways possible.
which is
um yeah, it goes so hard.
it's almost over. It's over the top. Like,
But
and
it's
like
fun. It's very very fun, and it's an addicting gameplay. Like it just sucks you right in, and
it very much works for what the game is. Um,
mhm.
but obviously would not work for, say, my preferred characterization of Batman after it.
um, but on Mark Hamill, I mean, we got to talk about him because I'd say his performance has changed quite a bit since the animated series. Here, he goes to this darker place with his voice, not just like literally because he brings the voice down a bit, it like physically, but also with the material that he's given. Like Hamill absolutely eats it up. He makes some really messed up jokes throughout this.
It's really
Um,
it's unhinged
yeah,
almost.
oh yeah.
And I enjoy it a lot.
Mhm.
Um, but again, it works in the context of this video game. Like, these are not the same incarnations, I'd argue, as the Batman the Animated Series
I would say
versions of the
for like
characters.
Asylum, it works. Like just for this game, I could see it as an extension of the animated series. When you get into City Origins Night, it becomes a little harder to say like, okay, I could see these same characters here. But
Yes.
here is where I'd say like, okay, it's a natural extension if you just made the animated series a little bit more adult, especially because
Yes.
this game is written by Paul Dini.
Yes, yes. And you can tell Paul Dini's like
Oh, this has
fingerprints
Paul
on the
Dini
story.
written all
Um,
over it. Oh yeah.
and that's a great thing. Hamill in particular, though, even with the dark thing, he's still very fun and
Oh
clearly
yeah.
having a ball. Like,
Mhm.
um,
Did you
at
get the chance to play any of the challenge maps?
I did not.
When you play the challenge maps, so how the challenge maps work is you go into them as Batman, and there are like 4 rounds that you have to go through, four waves of enemies, and they get like harder and harder each time. But between each round, like Joker is like announcing something to you. He'll be like, oh yeah, it's round this, whatever. Yeah, he'll like, and like Hamill is absolutely just like eating it up and playing around with what he can say here. They're so much fun, and I would totally give them a shot if you have the time to. Uh,
Yes. Um,
But
m-
outside of the animated series cast in this game, we have some other great voice actors in here. Tom Kane is here, of Clone Wars fame, in my opinion. He plays both Jim Gordon and Quincy Sharp and Amadeus Arkham,
yeah,
technically.
and what's interesting though is his vocal range. He pitches Sharp and Arkham very close.
He
Uh,
does. Well, that's mm, that's
yeah,
for a reason.
it's intentional. Um, but
Well, for a very
you
specific reason. But when we start talking more spoilers, I'll tell you.
yeah. Because I didn't finish all the Secrets of Arkham because trying to collect stuff in on the laptop is
Look,
not
I
fun.
I get it, but like for me, the collectibles in Asylum specifically are so second nature. Like on any given playthrough of Asylum now, and strictly because of like upgrade limits, like I I think by the time I'm done with the main story, I usually have like well over like less than 100 to go by the time I'm done with the main story.
I mean, yeah, it's
And
I got a lot
that's
of
simply
stuff.
because I'm so familiar with the game. Like I played it so many times. Um but yeah,
Uh,
I love it. And the collectibles are so much fun to do.
yeah, but he's Kane as a performer is pitching all three characters kind of close,
Hmm.
which
Well,
is very
Gordon, I would say,
interesting.
is a bit of a departure.
Yeah, but you can still
But
tell it. You can still
here,
tell it's this.
that's the other thing is like Tom Kane has such a unique voice. And as someone that like grew up watching the Clone Wars constantly, like I know Tom Kane's voice from a mile away. Like I could just like hear it in there. So there's that. But yeah, like his voice is so distinctive. You could just hear it in there. Um, Also featuring as the villain lineup in this game, we have Steve Bloom as Killer Croc, who I absolutely love. He's so much fun.
Oh yeah, I mean, Also, just the villain choices for this game.
Oh yeah, it's not your typical villain lineup for a Batman story. You have Killer Croc, Victor Zsasz, Scarecrow, Bane. Like these aren't villains you would typically throw together. And I think it's really interesting.
And
Um, yeah.
and once again, for a couple of them, mainly Zaz and Scarecrow.
Hmm.
This would have been my first sort of uh, exposure to them as characters.
Oh, you
Um,
hadn't seen like Batman Begins?
no, I did not. I didn't. Again, we've talked about how weird it was the way
Look,
like I watched that trilogy.
I'm aware. I'm aware.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah,
Um,
cast wise, we have Danny Jacobs as Victor Zsasz, who is so suitably creepy. I love
oh,
him.
he's chilling. He's chilling. When was Zaz created as a character? Was he?
Somewhere during Shadow of the Bat, and that would have been like late 80s, early 90s.
He's so like, yeah. So.
A
I
product of
mean,
his time.
I was gonna say that that makes sense
Yeah. Here we go.
for.
Yeah, Shadow of the Bat number one, 92. So
Oh yeah, you know what? That is a
he's
perfect
one of the many insane creations of Alan Grant.
Alan Grant. That
Alan Grant's wonderful.
that that
Um,
just that just sounds like the perfect time to create a character like this, just
yeah. Oh
because.
yeah. Yeah. Just before they kill Superman. Yeah.
And they start,
Yeah.
breaking Batman's back, and
Yeah. We also have Dino Andrade, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, as the Scarecrow, who is the most fascinating villain in this game.
uh,
Both gameplay wise and in just the way they portray him. I love his
it's
costume.
it's it's also it's so different. It really likes to take sort of the doctor aspect of Dr. Jonathan Crane and
Yeah,
warp it
like his
into this.
introduction, you're like walking up to this like lab and like you see his silhouette in this window where he's like filled it with fear toxin and he's like treating it like he's talking to a patient and you see him like strike down at this guy. He has like these needles on his hand on his glove that he like has like fear toxin in that he like stabs Batman with multiple times throughout the game. It's
Uh,
really interesting. Such a cool take on the character.
yeah, and I mean, also it's the gameplay missions with Scarecrow. There are three of them,
Hmm.
um, and all three on this playthrough, I was like, there's almost this musical cue, um,
Yeah.
in that just sort of just gets the idea into your mind that it's coming.
Yeah, yeah. Also, interestingly, I don't know if you noticed, but before you go into any room that like starts to activate a scarecrow mission, Batman will give a small cough just before he walks through the door.
Yeah, I did notice that. I'm
It's
like, oh,
so great. Oh, I love it. It's so so good. Other villains we have Tasia Valenza as Poison Ivy, who is wonderful in this. She only comes in towards the end of the game, but I really like her performance.
a very different portrayal of Ivy.
Someone that's
Um,
very connected to her plant life.
yes, yes. Also, I will say the gameplay when you actually fight Ivy
Yeah.
is is a bit under is a bit. You know what? A lot of the sort of boss fights in this are a
Yeah,
bit underwhelming.
other than like Scarecrow and Croc, a lot of the boss fights do sort of fail in this one, but they
Yeah,
do get better with each installment, I'd say, in the
yeah. Well, I mean,
franchise.
they honestly they're kind of uninteresting for something like Batman. You're not as It's not necessarily as clever as it could be.
Yeah,
Um,
so like the Ivy fight, the Joker fight at the end, any of the Zaz fights, like it's just Batman punching and throwing batarangs. It's
yeah,
nothing crazy.
but then you have the stuff with Croc
Yeah,
and
so
the Scarecrow stuff.
like boss fights where they incorporate what the villain's whole shtick is where they really succeed. Like in City. Do you know anything about any of the City fights?
I vaguely
Do you
remember.
know of the famous Mr. Freeze one?
I vaguely remember
The
trying to
great
do
thing
that. I
about the
think.
Mr. Freeze one in City is that they utilize Victor Freeze as a scientist and how smart he is. So you can't take him out the same way. So if you like hit him with a battering one try, like he'll learn how to like stop that from happening again. So you have to find a new way to fight him.
Yeah,
It,
which
it's so good, so good. We have next up we have Fred Tatasciore.
Tatascori. Yeah, he's
I guess, as Bane. And what did you think of Bane's portrayal in this? Costume aside, because I hate the costume in this.
So what's interesting is before originally playing this, the only Bane I would have had in my mind
Oh no.
is Batman and Robin.
Oh no.
So
Well, it's go ahead.
it's very interesting doing a game like this where where Bane, they at least try to make him closer to his comics portrayal. Like Dini tries and makes the character kind of a victim of the Joker, which I really like.
Mhm.
Though that this time around, I just could not. It took me way too long to beat that first Bane fight.
Yeah, you told me about that, and I was like, it's not hard. You just throw a battering when he's in a charge. It's not crazy.
Yeah.
But still, and then last about on the villain roster, we have Wally Wingert as the Riddler, who's just perfect. Like
He's
so perfect in every way.
The smug, like, just he plays him as such a smug bastard,
He does. Oh, he's so good.
and he just
So good.
like he continually gets annoyed as you find things.
Yeah, yeah. I love like hearing that. Like it that's another thing that's like really rewarding about finding all the Riddler things in this is like, as you do it, he progressively gets more pissed off at you.
Yes.
Um
Um,
Also,
Interesting.
now that I'm looking at the cast list, I forgot I didn't realize that Adrienne Barbeau's in
Yeah, I
this.
was just gonna bring up Adrienne Barbeau is in this game.
Yeah, and she's
Uh,
that voice that you hear over the speakers every
yeah,
now and
which
then.
this is not the only thing I've heard Adrienne Barbeau playing just a disembodied voice in.
Oh.
Uh, she's the voice of the computer in the thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she
I
was
did not know that.
yeah. She's,
Wow.
that's Adrienne Barbeau.
Also very fun. Apparently there are some Blackgate thugs in this, played by George Zunza, Scarface from the animated series.
Series. That's great.
So that's fun.
I'm surprised they didn't include the ventriloquist in this. They include
They have
Scarface.
Scarface, and I do like that they have like Mark Hamill do the voice of Scarface. So that's fun.
And I just like to imagine that was actually Hamill in the booth trying to do ventriloquism.
Oh, I hope so.
Like,
I hope so. But before we move into our spoilers, I'd like to go over the rest of our Twitter questions. Our friend Jamie at Jamie_season 7 says, "Do you agree that Bruce Wayne might be Batman?" So interestingly, in Arkham Asylum, we never see him take off his mask.
yes, you know
So
what?
I don't think we can say that Bruce Wayne is Batman in this
It
one.
could be Dick Grayson as Batman.
Yeah,
Yes.
all the other games, there's either a mask on or mask off sequence that we know that he's Bruce in. This one we don't see that,
Yeah,
so
he
we
could
cannot
be
confirm.
he could be Dick. He could be Jean Paul Valley.
Exactly.
Um,
Kian at Kian the Quark says, "Risking it all for the killer Crussy." I can't believe I said that out loud just now, but yes, we are.
we are.
You have a fun story about the killer Croc mission, actually.
God, yeah, that mission was. It's a great mission. It's brilliant. I love it. I was playing. So, because I'm playing this on Steam, I had a PS4 controller, like physically plugged in. And I eventually figured out, it turned out the wire was bent slightly.
Oh no.
So that's what was doing it. But like just throughout the gameplay in general, it would just occasionally unplug. And I'm
I
like,
love
what?
it.
So sometimes I would just die in the middle of a fight because my controller stopped working. I'm like, shit. That fucking Croc mission
But yeah, that had to make Croc fun.
is the worst if you don't have a working controller. I was able to switch the cords after that because I realized, oh, there's an issue with this cord. And then I was able to beat it. But like it is tense, it is a horror film, and I love it.
Oh, it's
Um,
great. Um, Next up, we have our friend English Giraffe at English_giraffe says, "No question for me. Just wanted to say that Arkham Asylum is perfect. It has the perfect horror atmosphere. The story is basic, but still works wonders in the atmosphere. It's in. The combat and stealth, despite not being as varied and fluid as games after, is still really fun. The Metroidvania style of traversal is so great. In fact, I think this game handles the Riddler stuff the best, despite being a defender of them in other games. And I have so much love for this game and the '60s show for really introducing me into Batman. Bosses are weak though." And I agree with pretty much all of that.
yeah.
It's a brilliant game. How did you find the gameplay throughout it though?
So I found it oddly really simple. I
It
like
is. It's simple, but it sucks you in. Like it's an addictive style, I think, you know?
it flows very nicely. Um, I do think in the detective mode stuff, there's a couple of things that easily could be worked out. Like,
Mm.
uh,
Asylum does rely a little bit too much on detective mode with how much they have you do the trails, like following them throughout the
yeah,
asylum.
well, that and
Um,
also just the fact that when you're like zooming in detective mode and things, like that zoom isn't the easiest to control,
I
which is
gotcha.
just a bit annoying. As well as the fact that like um, the rhythm is really nice, but like occasionally the flow will be kind of disrupted if you like
Asylum
accidentally.
Asylum, I have noticed that I have had a few problems with like countering at the right times.
Yes,
Um,
the timing of countering is
yeah,
awful.
that is something that's definitely fixed in future games, but it is like an Asylum exclusive problem, I think.
That and jumping over enemies to try to get to the back of them to hit them from behind like you're
I mean that's
supposed
not
to.
too bad, but yeah, like I said, yeah, Asylum is the wonkiest when it comes to like
Yeah,
those specific things that get much better in future games. And that's the thing with the Arkham franchise, at least when it comes to the Rocksteady ones, because Origins is not made by Rocksteady.
steady,
They just get gameplay wise and graphics wise, they just get better with each game, and
better and more interesting.
yeah,
Um,
definitely. And you really feel that as you continue to go through the franchise. Next up, we have Rules Panda at Jonathan787386610 says, in terms of story and representing the title character well, which is better, this or Spider-Man PS4? So you've not played Spider-Man PS4,
I
right?
have not.
I have. Story-wise, I'd say this. I prefer the story of Asylum. As far as representing the character, though, like you said, like with Asylum specifically, there's not too much depth when it comes to Bruce as a character, so we don't see too much of that. So I'd probably say Spider-Man in that case. But as a whole, as a franchise, like the Arkham games really nail Bruce as a character, like City onwards, you know. Other than the few moments we get in, like the Scarecrow missions in this, where we see so like Thomas Wayne, the Thomas and Martha Wayne things, especially that part where they turn you into a little kid Bruce at one point. I do
Yeah.
love that. But anyway, next up, this is DM to us from our friend Andrew, who's on the podcast before, says, apart from the obvious answer of the Joker, which Batman villain do you think has done the best here? How well or poorly do you think the game overall has changed? I'm assuming that second half means like, how's it aged?
Yes. Um, I think I think it's aged remarkably well. Um, especially with the characters in general. Um,
Yeah.
I
It's
think
got it's got a lot of replay value, doesn't it?
yes. Um, I think perhaps the one character who I think could have been served better um better by this is probably Harley, mainly because the character has a bit more depth than what you really see here with the game, because here she's reduced a little bit to just being the Joker's henchman and right hand woman.
I kind of
um
get that, yeah.
not to say that Arlene Sorkin's performance isn't great and amazing. Like
Oh yeah, I mean
she's
She's Arlene fucking Sorkin,
yeah,
yeah.
she knocks it out of the park from the
Yeah.
word go.
She
Um,
made the role, like literally made the role. um, but yeah, I guess like story wise, yeah, it is a bit of a henchman role, isn't it?
yeah, and it's it doesn't say do the examination of who she is as a character that say the animated series did as it went on, and
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think if you're looking
uh,
for a Harley examination of the Arkham franchise, I would say Knight does that the best, personally.
interesting. AKA the one that I have not played at
Yeah.
all. Well, one of
Yeah.
two.
Well, yeah.
Um,
But yeah. So and then as far as Andrew's other half of the question, I think we have the same answer. Best villain, Scarecrow, right?
Oh yeah, Scarecrow's
Yeah,
just the
easily
best.
Scarecrow. Yeah.
Um,
Um, And then from our friend Mason at the GD256, he submitted 3 questions. One, has there been a superior comic-based video game in your opinion, whether it came out before or after? In my opinion, the only ones that really surpass this game are other Arkham franchise games. So City, Night, in my opinion, not Origins. And that's about it. I don't know. I don't think there are many truly great comic book video games.
It's the
Um,
interesting thing about like media tie-in video games and how mixed they are in general. Um,
mhm.
I,
um, I
ones
mean,
like this
Spider-Man
work.
PS4 is great. You know, I love that. The Injustice games are great fun. They're awesome. Um, Marvel v. Capcom. I mean, that could be fun. You know, I enjoy that. But I don't know. I also don't think I've played a ton of comic-based video games to like really have a strong opinion on this. But I played all the big ones, so like I don't know. I don't think there are too many that are better than this that have really nailed the character and feel of Batman and Gotham as well as this. You know.
Yeah, I'm surprised there really haven't been like other like individual hero games, at least from DC. Like a
Yeah.
Superman game would be great to see.
You know what? I am very excited for Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League,
Yes, they're doing that.
which is also being made by Rocksteady. And I think
Aren't
that
there's also going to be like a Wonder Woman game? I
yes, there is. Oh, I forgot about that. By the guys that made the Lord of the Rings game. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, fuck
yeah.
yeah. Okay, that should be great. That should be fucking phenomenal. So yeah. His second question is, what is your biggest nitpick of this video game, if any?
Uh, biggest nitpick. I mean, either the bosses, um, or just the sort of anticlimactic ending, especially
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's that Joker fight at the end.
like
Ugh,
it
horrible.
doesn't feel as satisfying,
The fact that
really.
the Titan and henchman fight that comes right before it is harder and way more entertaining to do than the Joker fight, it just says a lot about how bad that last fight is.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Uh,
And then three, slightly topical, but would you rather have a new Arkham game or another Henry Cavill Superman movie? I'm content with the Arkham franchise as it is. So more Henry Cavill,
yeah, yeah.
please.
More Henry Cavill would be great. Though,
Yeah.
do not take this audience as us saying screw whatever Superman movie's coming next because
Yes,
uh,
because yeah.
it, it's
More on that some other day, I'm sure.
yeah, yeah. The short answer: situation sucks, but I don't really blame James Gunn. I
No,
really don't.
no.
Um,
Um, and also, hey, if you want to know what we think of how a DC cinematic universe should be done,
go to the
we
YouTube
have a whole
channel.
video on that.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's all there, and we also happen to suggest starting on a new Superman movie. So there's
Yeah.
that. Now James Gunn just needs to cast Bryan Cranston as Lex Luthor.
Yes.
Not going to
Yes.
happen, but I could dream.
You can. You can. We'll let you have your dreams
All
for
right, so
now.
we've been talking slight spoilers throughout the whole thing, but let's really delve into it. I'd say like from this point on, let's anything specific we have to say about the game, we'll just say it. You know.
Yes. Yes. Can we
Um,
start with like the actual plot being really quite simple?
oh, it's
Like
so simple. Yeah, it's just Joker traps you in Arkham Asylum. That's
yeah,
it.
and it's like okay, I know there's the Grant Morrison comic Arkham Asylum, a serious house on serious earth,
Yeah, which this is
which
loosely based on,
I believe what the premise was taken
and
probably.
that's pretty much it. Yeah, like Two Faces in the comic, and he's nowhere to be seen here. He does get a mention at the end though.
I mean, and you see his cell. You see his
Mm.
cell, and
Oh, I have to know. After the credits rolled, what hand did you get coming up to grab the box?
I got Scarecrow's hand.
Did you know that there are multiple hands that
I
can come
didn't.
up?
There are multiple hands.
Yes, so it's Scarecrow, Killer Croc, and Bane that you can get, and it's randomized.
It's oh,
So
so it's that's that's those are interesting choices,
mhm. Given
right?
the way the rest of the franchise goes, the one that makes the most sense
Since
is
is
Scarecrow.
Scarecrow.
I mean, well, also Bane, because Bane has a small side mission in Arkham City that kind of follows on that. So Croc is
So
the only one that makes absolutely no sense. So
so yeah. But I mean, I also so yeah. So the plot it opens simply, and it already steeps you in atmosphere really really well. Like
Oh yeah, that
from
long like 5-10 minutes walking sequence at the beginning of you just like getting that interaction between Joker and Batman and Quincy Sharp and all these other guards here as you transfer Joker in there. Croc walks through at one point. You get really sucked into this world and you haven't even really played the game yet up to that point.
you haven't, and you can see that there's clearly love for the Batman mythos,
Oh, so much love.
played here. Like a lot of characters. I mean, of course, it's because Paul Dini wrote this.
Yeah, yeah.
Is why, but like every Batman, like there's a cameo from Clayface that in this game that's really
Mhm.
clever.
Yeah, yeah. And like given it's Paul Dini, like he's writing his forte too. Like it's a Batman story where Joker and Harley are the main villains. Like
Yes.
that, because he perfectly gets these characters. If you've seen any of his animated series episodes with Joker or Harley, like you understand why he gets these characters so well. But you brought up the Clayface cameo, which I really do love when you're going to save Quincy Sharp, and at first he's Quincy Sharp, and Clayface is like behind this cell, and he's like trying to like get you to break him out of there as Quincy Sharp, and then you go get the actual Quincy Sharp. You go back down, and he's Aaron Cash now.
Yeah.
Or is it that, or is it the other way around? Is it Aaron Cash first?
Um, I believe it's Aaron Cash first.
Okay, yeah, and then it becomes Quincy Sharp later,
Yeah.
which is fun. And like you could scan that, you get a little Clayface bio. Like I love how they incorporate a bunch of the other character bios in the game. Like you can find like Penguin's umbrella at one point, and you get his bio from that. You see like Scarface's gun, and like you get his bio from that. Catwoman's like goggles and claws. So many like cool little things just strewn throughout the asylum. You find Black Mask's mask hanging up in an office at one point. I don't know if he did any of those, but
I found some of them, not all of them, just because there's a decent chunk, just because it's for what it is. It's kind of a big game.
oh yeah, yeah.
We're isolated just to Arkham, and it's really good to the game is at trying to get you to go back to areas you've been to before as you unlock different things.
Hmm.
And the sort of the progression of like what tools Batman has, and what they can be used for, as well as upgrading the tools in a fairly limited upgrade path. Like it's nothing
Yeah.
too
Oh yeah,
expansive.
yeah. With like City onwards, the skill tree gets massive. Like
Yes.
there are so many different things you could do with it.
Yeah, but I think it's simple. Though it's interesting that like you don't really get like health increases as the game goes on unless you pay for those upgrades. Um,
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's cool. Like, it's like, what do I want here? Do I want like a new skill, or do I just want more health? Like
yes.
it's fun. And then even in later games, there are two different kinds of health that you can upgrade. There's one for like there's ballistic armor, and there's just general combat armor. So it's for like stealth and combat missions. So
Yes.
it even like further expands your skill tree and the choices you have to make.
Yeah. It's also just as a game, it's very good at not always being like just fight everybody because sometimes your enemies have guns.
Yeah, yeah. What did you think of the stealth missions?
They would occasionally get repetitive. Um,
I get that. I do love the one where they make you not use the gargoyles though, where they have the bombs
yes,
up on them. I love that, and I think they
it's
did it like two or three times throughout the game, right?
yeah, it's a couple of times after like that first point,
Hmm.
just near the end. Although I think it might change with whatever difficulty you're playing on. Um, I was playing on normal difficulty
Mm.
because just normal middle of the road difficulty. You don't need to go super hard.
Yeah.
Um,
Although hard, I don't think is especially difficult when it comes to the first game.
yeah. Uh,
Hard is really hard on Knight. Like Knight could fucking murder you,
is it?
um, in my
Uh,
opinion. But
yeah. I mean, there's also just the question of like people who don't like the idea of video game difficulties, especially people who don't like easy mode. And it's like, yeah, the point of a video game is to have fun. And if
yeah,
you,
just whatever you're most comfortable with.
yeah, so like have fun, enjoy yourself.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's great. Oh yeah, there's also the Calendar Man one. I just remembered there's a cell with like a bunch of like calendar
Yes.
pages
And
plastered
it's
throughout it. You can
again
get that
such
one.
an obscure villain reference that you would,
Yeah, yeah.
you
There's one where you could like scan a newspaper clipping for Firefly. Same for Prometheus, which is so obscure. Um, yeah,
and
yeah, just some really cool characters that you could like
and
just
what's
find
nice
out
is that
about.
like the actual character bios are really nice at giving you right here's where this character first appeared as well. Like
Yeah, yeah, they give you the first comic appearance too.
yeah, which
Yeah.
I think is I, I think it's a good way to possibly get people interested in trying to read a comic. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
even if reading the first appearance of the Joker would be finding Batman #1,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which I haven't read, but I mean, it's probably decent. It's Golden Age Batman with, well, not
Bob
Bob
Kane.
Kane doing the art, but
But yeah, fun little things you can find throughout the game though. What do you think of the interview tapes?
I love how it's a collectible that really does such a good job of tying into the plot and tying
Mhm.
into the characters. I
I
didn't
mean,
find them all.
not all of them tie into the plot because they do them for the main like six or seven villains throughout the game. The Zaz one ties directly into the plot.
The
So does
Joker
the
and Harley ones do. Well, the Harley one
well,
is,
no, the Harley one is just a retelling of Mad Love.
yeah, but
Um,
I still think they're really. I'd argue it still ties in just a little bit because it's going to establish for people who may not know who Harley is who
yeah,
Harley is,
yeah, and
because
plus you just get to hear Arlene Sorkin do Mad Love again, and that's great.
yes, and
So
and
and Mark
she's
Hamill.
great.
Yeah.
Um,
But that same with Riddler and Joker. That yeah, they both tie directly into the game, and I love Riddler's. Riddler's
oh,
is
the Riddlers was really fun.
um Killer Crocs. I really like. You see him how he attacks Aaron Cash and makes Aaron Cash lose his hand. So I think that's fun. The Poison Ivy ones are fun. Just a series of doctors falling in love with her basically. Um,
yes.
and then there's another one, right?
Uh,
No, there's not Bane. There's no Bane one. I think that might be
is
it actually. Is it just
Yeah.
those six? That
Well, because
sounds.
there's sort of one for
Oh, the
each.
Scarecrow ones. The Scarecrow ones. Did you listen to all the Scarecrow ones?
I think I got like four of them.
Because in the last Scarecrow one, Batman actually shows up because Scarecrow like takes control of his doctor, and Batman shows up to stop him.
Ah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
so that's fun.
Uh,
But I really
yeah.
want to talk about on the collectible front, the Chronicles of Arkham. So how many of those did
Yes.
you get?
I only got about 10 of them.
Okay, so there are what, 30 overall?
Yeah, so I got a third of them.
Did you put anything together about it? Like
Uh,
what the greater mystery there might be?
I mean, I imagine it's a search for immortality, and Arkham is still alive, somehow. Uh,
What's interesting about it is big spoilers incoming if you never finished the Chronicles of Arkham. But the Chronicles of Arkham all lead up to this point where Amadeus Arkham starts talking about people that resemble patients that you've met throughout the asylum. So he talks about like the Joker at one point. He says like the Pale Man. He talks about Harley falling in love with the Joker, or Harleen as she was then. And by the end of it all, you learn that it's not Amadeus Arkham at all. It is Quincy Sharp, who believes he has been possessed by the spirit of Amadeus Arkham and has gone insane himself.
which, I mean, it fits with who Sharp is kind of as a character.
Oh yeah, yeah, and like I said,
Like,
like the reason that Tom King gives them pretty much the same voice is definitely on purpose because it
yes.
is just Quincy Sharp. And I just love that aspect of the game so much. And when you finish all that, you go to where you last saved Quincy Sharp, and you see that he's written this last message for you, and he says like I will cleanse this city and all that shit. It's very fun, very like such a cool part of the game.
Yes. So,
And
did
then
they
once you
have the idea for Arkham City while this was in development?
they did, they
I was going
did.
to say they had to have just
There
because.
is one last little Easter egg, which apparently people did not find for like nearly 2 years after the game had released. So you know that area where Dr. Young dies, where she blows up and Zaz had
Yes.
her. Okay, in that office, because it is Quincy Sharp's office, there's this wall that if you put three little things of explosive gel on and blow them up at the same time, it will unlock another room in there. And you
Ooh.
go in there and you find the plans for Arkham City in that room.
So they had, okay, so they knew it was
But
going to
like players
be.
never found that because there's nothing in detective mode that gives it away that it can be blown up. It's just a wall that looks completely normal and like all the others. And you blow it up, and in there are the plans for Arkham City. And it's great. It's such a great little Easter egg. And like nobody found it. So Rocksteady like shared it with the board. They're like, hey, just here, like we announced the game already. Just find the damn secret.
Find the secret that we made potentially a
It's
little
so well
difficult
hidden,
to
like
find.
nobody found it, literally nobody found it. So that's fun. And then last thing, when you get all the collectibles in the end, basically all you're doing is you're locking onto Riddler's coordinates as he continues to talk to you throughout the night. So you send like the police after him in the end, and once you get all the collectibles, and that's the end of that. So
It's a
yeah.
nice it's a nice little ending. But I think is also really, really interesting is how odd this game feels timing wise. Like
How so?
it takes place over the course of a night, but as a video game, it's not really happening like in real time.
Hmm.
And so like your playtime is definitely going to be longer than like 12 hours, shall we say? 'Cause
Yeah.
it's not a particularly long game. Like there are some games that go up to 50 to 100 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, this is just it's really really interesting on how
Hmm.
it feels like it simultaneously feels perfectly length, but also kind of long.
Yeah.
Um,
That's what they do with all the Arkham games actually, is they all take place across one night.
yeah, which again, bit weird. Especially because
It's a
like
fun little gimmick though. I like it.
yeah, well, I mean, this one like the actual events of the plot feel hypothetically like they could take place in one night, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I know City is longer, and
Night is the longest. Oh, night is so fucking long. Yeah, it's great. Night is fun though. There's a lot of rewarding stuff in night, I'd say. And I like the structure of night too, because night isn't just like one main story, because they make the side missions just as much a part of the story as the main story. So like you have like the option to take on anything at any time, pretty much. Because like City is where they introduce side missions into the game. Um, but um but like like they are still like side missions, they are just that, but like night makes it like one whole experience and it's very fun.
that's interesting because so Knight is the one that I know the least about outside of the twist on who the Arkham Knight actually is, and sort of the villains behind that game. I won't spoil it here in case someone hasn't played them,
Yeah,
because it's very possible that
which
you
by the
haven't.
way, if you haven't played Arkham Asylum and you're listening to this, why?
Do it. It's great. It's great. And it's all three are on Steam,
It's
so
true, all four are on Steam.
all
You can
four
play
are on
Origins
Steam.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, and
and I
I
and so is Arkham Origins Blackgate, if you want to count that monstrosity.
is I'm guessing that one's.
Arkham Origins Blackgate is the handheld sequel to Arkham Origins.
Oh,
It's so
that's
terrible. It is
that's certainly not like
so terrible.
yeah, that's certainly not a that's not a you know that's not a
It's bad. It's just
yeah,
bad. Yeah, you don't need to say anything more. It's just bad.
it's not where I would go with that,
No,
shall we
yeah, not
say.
at all. Not at all.
Um,
Yeah.
but what I think is also really interesting is one all the vocal performances are taken basically from people who have already been in video games for
Hmm.
a while,
Yeah, yeah.
which is
It's a very
very
professional
smart.
product, which is interesting because I believe Rocksteady only had like one game under their belt before this. And the reason that this game exists as it does is because Warner Brothers stopped trying to make tie-in games to movies. So Batman Begins, the video game, was a failure, and and there was like a probably a Dark Knight game in development, but they're like, we're not even going to bother with that. So they gave the rights over to Rocksteady, who only had one successful game under their belt, and they let them make the next Batman tie-in game, and it was its own thing. It was Arkham Asylum, and it spawned this whole completely different franchise, and it's awesome. So.
That's awesome, and I think that's honestly it's a great way. It's a great way to sort of cut your teeth as a developer. Now, what's interesting is that the two of us aren't really like I'm not a hardcore gamer.
No, oh no, I don't play that often. Like damn near like pretty much the only video games I play are like the Arkham games that is. I play Pokemon, some
Yes.
fighting games that are
I
that's about it.
I occasionally like
And I like The
JRPGs.
Last of Us. That's about it.
Did you like The Last of Us? Which
Oh, The Last of Us. So
yes,
good.
so
So
good.
good.
Um, but what's the most interesting is that it's very accessible to someone who isn't a gamer.
Yeah, yeah. Like we mentioned, like the gameplay is very simple. And it just sort of like takes you right in, and it's very enjoyable.
Yeah, and I think. I think that's honestly like the best way to do a game like this is to keep it simple, keep the plot very, very simple, um, and just keep it interesting because the simplicity of the plot um, is partially what makes it so what makes it just work so well.
Hmm.
Like we and what I think is interesting is of of all just as sort of a because this is technically a tie-in game to a piece of intellectual property. It doesn't try to limit. It doesn't partially because it's the property being a comic character and not a film, so it doesn't
Hmm.
have a plot it has to follow.
Yeah.
It doesn't really limit itself to one thing. It allows the game to do interesting things, as well as it makes a very good decision of bringing in a writer who knows what they're doing and who has worked in multiple mediums.
Yeah.
Like people in adaptation, there's a tendency for people to want to be like, oh, just bring over the writer. Like if you're adapting a book to film, bring over the writer of the original book to write a screenplay, and that's not always a great idea because writing a book and writing a screenplay are very different things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, but like at this point, Dini had written for comics and television and films probably at some point. Like he had done work on on being flexible with a medium, and it probably and I don't know how much of video games he'd actually played, but he had a story. He went with it. He took a premise from a classic story and just expanded it out, made it really nice. What's also and it made it a really fun experience for the player, even if it's not like character driven. Like this is very plot
Yeah.
driven.
Well, yeah, it's plot driven, and like what Dini, I mean, what Rocksteady really nails here with Dini is that the gameplay the gameplay is a big part of it, but also it is a very story driven game at the same time. I'd say, you know,
Yes,
despite being a very simple plot,
and it
it's
integrates the story so well
into the
into
gameplay. Yeah.
into the
Yeah.
game, into every aspect of the game. It's like
Yeah.
all the collectibles feel like they're building towards part of the bigger story.
Yeah, yeah. And
Even if it's
actually, one of my favorite things about we didn't even talk about this. I'm kind of mad we didn't talk about this yet. Within this world of the three islands of Arkham here, um, we have this idea that the island sort of keeps changing throughout the night. So at first, like when you first go into like the world between like the six main buildings of the island, there aren't really like any like enemies there. But then later on, the enemies start to arrive, and then even later on, Joker breaks these crazed lunatics out of this one building from the asylum, and then they're running around the island that you can only take down by countering them and doing like one of those ground pound moves.
yes,
And then later on, Poison Ivy unleashes her plants on the island, so they change the atmosphere as well. So it changes your gameplay while also enhancing the story.
yeah, and with that, the color palette, if you notice,
Oh
changes
yeah,
quite a
yep.
bit. Like it starts off very blue, then you get to the grayish, sort of the inmates are released,
And
and
then it
then to
becomes like
the
reddish pink when Ivy
yeah,
takes over.
like this red green, almost Christmassy, honestly. Like
Yeah.
a dark Christmas,
Hmm.
um, which is just a fun and funny atmosphere to have. Um,
I gotta know. Towards the end, did you fight the 20 some guys that were waiting for you?
no,
You
I
didn't.
just I was like, no, rush through this, get through this.
Oh, but you can. They're so easy. They're not like special enemies or anything.
Interesting. I didn't. Um, shall we haven't really talked about why the boss fight doesn't work, and what
The
the
final
Joker's
boss fight. Well,
actual
actually, that was sort of like the last big segment I wanted to bring up. Let's talk about the boss fights, I guess.
and like the actual plan of the Joker that the Joker has, because it's an interesting plan.
Yeah, yeah. Your first sort of tutorial boss fight, and it's more a tutorial for stealth missions, but it's a boss fight because you're taking out a big named character,
Yes,
Zaz, when you first do that like glide kick to the back of him.
and it's not bad. It's very short. It's very simple. It gets you acclimated to some of the mechanics, like sort of a good tutorial should.
Yeah.
But then like he comes back occasionally, and you fight him again, and it's essentially the same thing, like
Yeah.
over and over.
Absolutely.
Uh,
But next up, you meet your first Titan henchman when Joker unleashes
because
that thing on you.
because the Joker's plan is to take the drug Venom, enhance it, and it becomes a super steroid called Titan.
Yes, and
Which
so you meet this first Titan henchman, and you're not supposed to fight it. You're pretty much just supposed to like wait around until it dies by itself. Um,
yes,
and so it's just a survival game, and once again, like, it's teaching you the first basic as to like how to fight the Titan henchman. It becomes very second nature by the end of the game. But then you get into your first Scarecrow mission, which is the one where you go into the morgue
going to the morgue.
and you go out of the morgue into another morgue, and you see these three body bags laid out on these counters. You open the first one. It's either Thomas or Martha. I'm not sure if they have a specific order, but it's Thomas or Martha. You open the other one. It's the other member of the Wayne family, and you open your third one. And oh, and interesting with those first two Waynes, they're zombified, like they're white skinned, their eyes are blank, and they look
They've
at you.
been dead for
They
a
say some kind of
while.
creepy message to you. You get to the third body bag. It's Scarecrow. You get a little jump scare, and then you make your way through this sort of like almost 2D side scroller mission.
Yeah, it's sky
Um,
scroller platformer, which is really cool and really fun, where you're trying to avoid the scarecrow's gaze as he's giant and towering over you, and it's really creepy. It's good, and this style of mission comes back two more times, and each time it's not quite like they don't change the core of it, but they almost they up the length, they up when it actually happens, and they just add some little nice details to make it feel different enough that you feel like you're
mhm.
progressing.
Yeah.
Um,
But then you have the Bane fight, which is the next big boss fight. Actually, I did want to talk about the stealth mission leading up to it, which is where you save Gordon from Harley. Right outside of that is this one of the Easter egg where Bane's teddy bear is there. Do you know anything about Bane's teddy bear?
I know that like he grew up with it in prison, and it's
Yeah.
like
So
the one thing
it's
he cares for.
yeah. So anyway, so you go to fight Bane then. And this is the first one that you struggled with, right?
Yes.
I mean, I guess
Um,
they're not like entirely clear on what to do to begin with, I guess. But it's really your first proper like Titan fight. It's just with a named character. They're teaching you how to fight Titan henchmen, and
yes.
so you aim a battering at them when they're about to charge at you, and you let them hit the wall and you punch them a little bit. Nothing crazy. Um,
Uh,
the next big boss fight would be Scarecrow 2, which is that's the one where you're walking down the hall and it turns you into Kid Bruce, right?
yes. Yes.
So yeah, so you do that. It turns into little kid Bruce, and they incorporate this is the only hint of the Dark Knight trilogy in here, where they make it so that Gordon is the cop that comes to investigate the Wayne murders at
Yes.
first, and he meets Bruce as a little kid, which I do like that scene actually.
Yes.
And it
Um,
really works. Like, you stand over the parents as they're dead, and you walk away, and you hear that conversation between Gordon and Bruce, and then you do the second 2D side scroller thing, but then you fight two Titan henchmen at the same time, which would be the next big boss
it's
fight.
nice.
And I wanted to just do you struggle at all with that one because that
Uh,
one can be tough if you don't know
Oddly
don't
enough,
know like exactly how to do it.
that one I didn't. It's just kind of easy to pit them against each other and
Yeah.
take it out that way, which is
Interestingly, did you have to use explosive gel in the Titan containers afterwards?
I don't think so because I think that I had
Because if you
them.
don't, because while you're writing the Titan henchmen, if you don't make them hit the Titan containers, then you have to blow them up manually
Yeah,
afterwards.
well, because I had them just run into them, so they were
Yeah,
destroyed no matter what, which is uh very nice. And I think after this point is where the bosses really start getting, I don't want to say repetitive, just less creative.
I
Uh,
guess. Well, I mean, we're coming up on the Croc one soon because the next is the
yeah,
third Scarecrow one, which is
yes,
the best one because
it's
The Scarecrow ones just get better with each one.
yeah, because the Scarecrow
This
one,
one has the best lead up to it though. It's the game crash one.
yeah, the
Um,
game crashes and you're just like, I remember when I first played the game, like way back, I was like, holy shit, do I have to like resave and restart?
Yeah, because it crashes as you're walking down this hall. There's this nice little hint beforehand though, because the little announcer voice is like saying some weird things. She's like, "Did anyone catch the game last night?" And then the game crashes. And then then the game like seemingly restarts. You go back to the first scene. The bat signal is upside down. Joker is driving the Batmobile. He takes Batman into the asylum as like Scarecrow, Harley, and Joker are escorting Batman, like you do at the start of the game to Joker. Joker then shoots you. You get a game over screen. And usually with the game over screens, they'll give you a little hint as to like how to beat whatever you were
Yes.
stopped by. And it says use the middle stick to dodge Joker's gun.
And I
And
was
it's
like,
like
wait, what middle
there's no middle
stick?
stick. So you're dead and you come back up and you climb out of this grave and then you go into the third Scarecrow mission. And it's so great. Like it's such a great build up to it.
And
It's brilliant.
then you lead Scarecrow down into the sewers where he gets eaten by Killer Croc,
Yes.
basically.
And
Which
have you seen Scarecrow's Arkham Knight design?
I have not.
Because Scarecrow's Arkham Knight design is like has like this really like tatty looking mask thing. It wasn't until
Oh,
recently that I realized that it's not a mask. It's just how fucked up his face is from being attacked by Croc.
from being attacked by Croc and
Yeah,
eaten.
it's horrible. Like oh, it's so good. But you do the Croc fight, and the Croc fight's one of the best in the game.
You have to stealth through the sewers basically to find spores of the plant that like venom comes from that'll be used as a Titan antidote.
Yeah,
Because the whole idea is that Joker's gonna basically burn down the city by releasing Titan into the water supply. Essentially, is the plan, though not really like. And then he does, and you have to like figure it out. It's a whole thing. It's very simple and very fun. Though I don't know why Gotham's water supply is accessible from from Arkham Island.
right.
Like,
Especially where Croc's lair is.
yeah, like guys, you're not helping your city by giving
Anyway, then we
super
have there's
villains.
another Titan henchman fight, and this is the one where they teach you how to fight Titan henchmen alongside fighting other henchmen. Um, it's just cool. Like I love seeing the evolution of the Titan fights. They're great. Then you do the Poison Ivy fight, which is okay. It's fine. It's dull.
It's odd. It's repetitive. It's you beat down Ivy's health a little bit essentially. Then she sends a bunch of
Mhm.
people to fight you.
Yeah.
Beat it again, and it repeats that for like six
I
times.
remember always feeling really awkward playing that fight around like family members because like the noises that she makes when you like hit her.
Yeah, and they really lean into the Ivy design as seductive. Like
Yeah, I mean it works
it,
for the character because like she doesn't care about what she's wearing because she is with nature, I suppose. You
yes.
know.
I
Um,
mean, I'll also say she's also like the one villain. She and Bane are like the two villains who are kind of on the sidelines of the Joker's plans and aren't
yeah,
really
well,
in
yeah,
on
because they
it.
even say that like there's that scene where Harley's talking to Ivy and like she's not on Joker's list, but Harley lets her out anyway.
Yeah,
But then you have that
which
second to last fight with the two Titan henchmen and the other Arkham guards. Um, and
and this is as you're going to the like this is the final like
and
basically
honestly, this should be just the final fight of the game.
it really should, but they wanted you to clearly like actually face the Joker, except it feels like a very video game thing of like, well, the
It's
Joker's the main villain, so you have to fight him,
yeah,
despite
but how do you physically fight the Joker? You know,
he
so
is a dude.
they turn him into a giant Titan henchman that doesn't actually fight you the same way that other Titan henchmen
No,
do.
like
So
he
all he does is he
sends
like swipes his arms at you every now and then he jumps up and sends some other guards down to fight you, and then you just pull him down with the bat claw, and that's it.
and
Like
that's it.
you do that 3 times, and that's the end.
And that's the game. Like
And it's just it's so anticlimactic.
it really is, and it doesn't. Honestly, that entire sequence feels like it was added on hastily. Like
Yeah,
like because it feels like once you beat all the Titan henchmen and it's like, oh, you've got Joker, you've got the antidote. This is it. But it's like, oh, we need to throw a wrench into things. So Joker stabs you with Titan,
Well, no,
Uh,
he's gonna shoot Gordon with the Titan, and
oh right, and then
Batman jumps in the way, so he takes it. So Batman fights it off somehow. Apparently,
fights
he
it.
fights it out of his system by
Well, he
having
then
a
uses
strong
the
will or
antidote on
something.
himself,
Yeah.
which like okay, mind you, they've already established that the antidote is being produced. It's just being produced slowly. Um, like so, that's fine. And then so then Joker mutates himself and takes you up to the roof, a la King Kong, basically.
Mhm.
Um, which I mean, you can read into that what you will. It's very weird. Also, the Titan Joker design I don't love. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
it doesn't it's like
There's actually some pretty sick concept art of what it could have looked like that you could check out.
really because yeah
But
because
uh, but yeah, it's just
it
a stupid
looks
design.
it just doesn't look like it fits with the aesthetic of the game in general.
Mhm.
Um,
Especially with the mohawk, like just I
yeah,
hate the mohawk.
but because like the best Titan design is obviously Bane because it's just an extension of what Bane normally looks like. Uh,
Yeah.
which is which is great. I it's the use of a character makes the game come together and look very nice together.
Mhm.
But then you have just this Joker Titan design, and like once you beat him,
It almost feels too much like a video game for its own good, you know?
yeah,
Like it's just like we just gotta have him become a big monster, you know?
and
Um,
it doesn't really know. It doesn't feel like it doesn't. It feels like the game doesn't know how to like end either.
yeah,
Like
it does have a nice very last cutscene though.
yeah, the last cutscene is
Except for the bit where Batman puts that dangerous explosive gel on his fist that he's been using the whole night to blow up walls, and he sets it off when he goes to punch Joker, and it hurts Joker but not Batman,
yeah, well, because he's Batman,
I guess.
I guess. It's it's a weird climax that really
Yeah.
lets
But
down.
but yeah, other than that, very nice last cutscene where, you know,
Um,
we lock up Joker and everyone else and we sedate everyone
and what's
um,
interesting is that it doesn't hint that Joker's going to be in the sequel. Like
no,
that
no.
final cutscene feels like the sequel hook
Yeah, I
because
gotta know what you remember about the Joker's plotline in Arkham City
I remember that he's dying
because
and
of the Titan, right?
because of the Titan.
Yeah, okay, all right. I wasn't sure if you remember that part of it. That was what I was most
Yeah,
curious about.
yeah. And don't worry, if you we will be working on a way to do Arkham City. Um,
Just get
if
a new computer, damn it. It's not that
that
hard.
is easier said than done because new computers cost quite a bit of money at one
That's
time.
that's true.
That's true. It's money. Money is money, and that's yeah. Um, it's also just a very it, the game is almost the perfect size for what it is too.
Hmm.
Like there's plenty of exploration, but not too much, and it you don't sort of lose anything, and the plot is very easy to follow.
Hmm.
Like
Oh, on that last fight, I do want to mention that in the cutscene leading into the last fight, it's Jack Ryder reporting on
yes,
the building there, and there's also a Jack Ryder reference earlier on that if you scan the radio that you hear his show on, you get a Jack Ryder bio, and so that's fun. You know, the Creeper shows up,
the creeper
not as the
shows up.
Creeper though. It would be pretty great if he was as the Creeper though.
I mean, I'm I'm surprised the sequels don't bring in like the Justice League or anything.
They
Uh,
don't. Although in Night there are a couple other Leaguer references. I know there's a Queen Industries one, there's a Clark Kent Metropolis reference, and I know there's a LexCorp thing.
yeah, I mean,
So
and now that they're doing Suicide Squad, um, kills the Justice League, which will have Kevin Conroy in it,
oh, I
which
love it. Oh, I need
is
it.
it's
Mhm.
just an amazing. That is just already an amazing fine sort of final gift to have.
Yeah, yeah. In a Rocksteady game, no less. You know,
Yes,
the fact
to
that he's doing it for them, you know, to and that's his final performance. Like,
yeah,
oh,
which
oh
is
God,
gonna be sad.
it's still hard to believe because he wasn't even like super old either.
No, it was
He was
cancer.
66, and
It
like,
was yeah. Though I think this last year has also been just a really good year for Conroy in general. Like
yeah.
getting to do one last performance, getting to tell his life story somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Uh, and that's sort of what pushed me to finish this game in general, just so we could be sitting here talking about this before the end of the year.
Yeah.
And it's really quite sad, and we really lost, just an amazing actor, a really underappreciated actor, if we're
Yeah.
being honest. Like
You know,
he
he's one of those actors also that, you know, did almost sort of get pigeonholed into this one role for the rest of his life, but he didn't regret it. He was, he is Batman. There will never be anyone more perfect for the role than him.
Yeah. And he clearly embodied the character, and he clearly loved doing it.
Yeah.
Like he didn't, because he probably could have gotten other roles,
Oh
right?
yeah, he's got a fantastic voice. I'd be shocked if he wasn't able to get other roles. Um, but he
Uh,
stuck with the role for so long because he truly did love it, and
yeah,
that shines through in all of his performances. He never phoned
yes,
in a Batman, I think. You know?
yeah. And it was this is and honestly, probably the Arkham games helped introduce him as Batman to a new generation of people.
Oh,
Like,
totally. Yeah, they're just
uh,
the Arkham games are just barely outside of the DC animated universe.
uh,
Um, and it's nice to have that there, that people like know him for something else too, and that got people interested in going back to the animated series, and seeing where his performances began, and just what a great actor he was and how perfect he was for this role.
yes. But yeah, that's it's also interesting to trying to talk about a video game, because that's really, we've covered quite a lot.
We
Um,
have, and I'd say that's about all we need to cover, right?
that's pretty much everything. So,
Yeah. So
uh,
we
do we
probably missed something somewhere along the line.
somewhere? Yes. Do we want to announce what we're planning on doing for our next bonus episode? Uh,
I mean, if you know that, that'd be pretty great.
well, we were going back to we're going back to television. Uh,
Oh, okay. All right.
and we're
Cool.
going to remember, we're probably going to have a guest on this one. Uh,
Yes, we should. I
yes,
would
yes.
imagine we would.
Hopefully
Yeah.
we get it out probably early next year,
I would
in
imagine. Yeah.
2023.
Yeah.
Uh,
So hopefully on our next bonus episode, go ahead.
we will be covering the first three seasons of the 2019 animated Harley Quinn show. Uh,
Indeed. Yeah.
Indeed, which is
So,
that's also a
so
lot of
excited.
thoughts. Um,
Yes. How far are you in it? I forget.
Middle of season 2, so
Okay. Cool.
it shouldn't
Awesome.
take that long.
It
It
shouldn't.
really
It
shouldn't.
it's yeah. Season three is only what, 10 episodes?
I think so.
So yeah.
Yeah.
You can do
Uh,
this. You
I can
got
do
this.
this. I
Yeah.
can do it. Uh,
Anyway,
uh,
thank you all so much for watching and listening, or wherever you were watching and listening to us on. Be sure to leave a rating and subscribe to wherever you're watching or listening to us on. There, we're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, anywhere you want to listen to us. We're a bit of everywhere.
everywhere. If you like what you're hearing, last week we released our 31st episode covering another all-time great Batman Joker story, Batman Endgame.
Indeed.
And next week we will be releasing our first of two episodes on the original Suicide Squad run by John Ostrander.
Indeed. Yes, very excited to talk about that. That'll be the first episode of the new year. So
Yes.
very cool.
On the second day of the new year.
Yeah, so that should be very fun. Be sure to stick around for that. Also follow us on Twitter. I am at Jomo with 3 underscores. He is at Newt5996. I'll leave this link down in the description. You can go follow us there.
And on both our Twitters, you can find links to other social media platforms where we are, as it becomes ever clearer that Twitter is slowly dying.
Indeed, yeah. So
For
be on the
reasons
lookout
we
for
will
that
not state, because we don't want to be banned on Twitter.
for criticizing the man. Anyway, so I guess that about does it. Thank you all so much for listening. Until next time, this has been Joey Morgan
And Jacob Licklider,
Goodbye.
goodbye.